Welcome. What you're about to watch is out of my Zettelkasten, Getting Started with Zettelkasten course that's over on SkillShare. Today we're going to talk about how I go about connecting notes just long term so that my knowledge always keeps compounding. If you're interested in the course, you can actually go take it by following the links below. You can find me at curtismchale.ca/Skillshare. We'll take you out to Skillshare. You can search, find my courses, but there's a link to each individual course below. Buckle up, how to make sure your knowledge continues to compound. In this video, we're going to cover some of the questions I ask myself when I'm trying to connect new notes, new ideas into the rest of my system. Because like I've said numerous times already, the most important part of your entire Zettelkasten workflow is connecting notes into your other ideas, into your previous reading, into everything else so that you create a big web of knowledge. One of the first questions I ask is, how does this idea fit into what I already know? You saw this when I did some of my note-taking demos already, my literature notes, when I really started searching, like, here's a keyword for this one sentence, and does this keyword have any other notes that relate to it? Are there any other ideas that relate here? And then you saw I put a bullet point and explained why I think these notes relate. The second question is, can this idea be explained by something else? So maybe I think I have an explanation already, but is there some other explanation that I might not see that maybe contradicts it, that maybe will change the idea, flip it on its head? And what would that be? How would I even find that out? That's a good question. If you don't know, you'd say, well, maybe, and you might guess a little bit and take a note on why it might be wrong or why you might need to change your idea here. Another one is, how can this idea help explain anything else that's already in my system? And you saw me do that when I related a few notes together, again, specifically in my literature notes for Why We Can't Sleep. You saw me connect 2 or 3 notes together and continue to build that network so that later on when I start to interrogate my system, when I start maybe looking at, say, midlife crisis, something like that, I come into 3 or 4 notes and or 4 or 5 notes and start creating a project note that helps connect all of these things together. Maybe one of the biggest questions is, what other ideas contradict this one? So if I like the idea, if I say, and even we did some of that in the literature notes where it said, we looked at the one that said meaningful work is good and it helps you, work through overwork if your work is meaningful. But it also said in Why We Can't Sleep that, like, you're just overworked. You're trying to have everything because you could possibly have everything, so you must have everything. And so just those ideas are in a bit of tension together because while you can say it's meaningful to have kids, it's just also so much work. It's tiring, it's picking up socks, it's why are you licking the posts? That's what my daughter did yesterday, licked all the fence posts. Why are you licking the posts? Why are you licking the water off the ground in the parking lot? And that in the midst of that, you think, as meaningful as parenting can be, as raising kids can be, it's just a grind every day. So seeing those two ideas intersect, and again, even going with my example of my child licking posts yesterday, just interrogating those two together and saying, like, do they really go against each other or do they not? I even found this when I looked at the dip and range recently on my YouTube channel, where I said, these two books do not line up. One is telling you to do different things. And when I started pushing them together and kind of writing out, interrogating the idea, and I did a video on this, then I really figured out that they're not probably talking about something different. What they're talking about is ranges. In the dip, it basically says you get good and then you lose you're not making your forward momentum. You're still working hard, but you're not making a lot of progress. Then it goes up. And range is probably in that middle bit when you're getting your diverse experiences. And then you're building on them, and suddenly you get that career you didn't really know at the end of the dip. Another good question is, why am I attracted to this idea? Does this idea fall into what's called confirmation bias? Does it confirm other ideas that I have? Am I attracted to it because it confirms these ideas? And if that's the only reason, why am I making note of this? Because it's very easy to fall into confirmation bias, to continue to find resources that we believe that we want to keep following because it says we're right. And that is probably the weakest thing you can do as you build your Zettelkasten system, is just focus on those without really interrogating them, again, with some of the other questions we've already said. Would this idea differ or would this outcome differ, my thoughts differ, if I came from a different race, background, social class, gender? How would this idea relate or look to people from these other areas? And you may not know. You literally may have no idea to start, which is okay. I'm clearly a white guy. And there's a lot of stuff that I just do not understand because I'm a white guy, right? I don't worry about walking down the street like my wife does. But then reading Invisible Women helped give me some perspective to look at what women would deal with in the design of transit systems, in how we light our cities, in a bunch of other things that make it less safe for them, and mostly because men design it. And they do not do perspective taking very well at all, especially white guys. They just do a bad job. But I didn't have these ideas ready at hand until I had read some other books and realized that I didn't have a good idea of what First Nations, what people of color, what women had to deal with, because it's not my experience. But by reading and then looking at some of these ideas as I've come back to them later with new knowledge, I look at it and say, well, that might not be true, or it's not true in these circumstances for these people, for this gender, for this social class, because of, this other learning I've done. And finally, a good one is, are there any moral applications for this idea? How is this going to change what I'm going to do today? How will I apply it today to make my life better? Now, there's probably one really big final step in how you really use your Zettelkasten system, and it is sharing. You must share your system. You must share some of the ideas in there. And it doesn't have to be online, doesn't have to be in videos or in blogs or anything like that. But you need to share it somehow. You need to talk with your friends. I talk to my friends about transit and city design regularly, even though I don't write a lot about it. But I think about it as a mostly cyclist, as a one-car family. I haul my children around in a trailer regularly. So I think about transit. I think about the spacing of the bollards that stop vehicles from coming into bike lanes, but also prevent a trailer from getting out very easily without having to cross into the road, right? I think about this and I message the city sometimes and say, take a photo. Look, the trailer doesn't fit. You're forcing me to go into traffic. And our city's actually very good. They've, we moved it over 3 inches and said, hey, that's perfect. Now there's plenty of space for this. But sharing these ideas, continuing to interrogate them, writing about them for yourself, better for other people, doing video work, stuff like that on YouTube can really help you build these ideas. In our last video, we're just going to kind of do a quick recap of everything that's going on so that you can head off and build your Zettelkasten system.